There are moments in the history of Westeros that burn themselves into the bones of time. Moments that tear through families, rewrite the fates of great houses, and echo across the Seven Kingdoms like thunder on the mountains. But few were as shocking, as devastating, or as coldly executed as the Red Wedding. It was annihilation, a calculated slaughter dressed in the garments of guest rite and celebration, a massacre delivered with smiling faces and poisoned oaths, and at the very heart of that blood-soaked betrayal was Catelyn Stark. Welcome to The Fate of Lady Stark, a series devoted to uncovering what really happened after the Red Wedding, not the story you saw on screen, but the one written in shadow, blood, and fire in the pages of George R.R. Martin's books. This is a tale of death, and something far more disturbing. This is the story of what Catelyn Stark became. Let's begin where the show and book meet in that cursed hall at the Twins. In Season 3, Episode 9 of HBO's Game of Thrones, we watch Catelyn Stark die. Not in battle, not in noble sacrifice, but in grief, in silence, in helpless, horrifying loss. She witnesses her son, King Robb Stark, struck down by his bannerman, Roose Bolton, with the infamous words, "The Lannisters send their regards." And then, with her last act, she seizes Lady Frey, Walder's wife, and slits her throat in desperation. But even this final gesture of revenge changes nothing. Her scream echoes across the hall. A Frey moves behind her and cuts her throat, and she falls. Just like that, it's over. For viewers of the show, this is where Catelyn's story ends. But for readers of A Storm of Swords, her journey doesn't end in death. It begins there. In the book, the horror is deeper, more visceral, more haunting. When Robb dies, Catelyn doesn't simply scream, she breaks. The carefully poised Lady Stark, the dutiful wife, the fiercely protective mother, unravels completely. She howls with mad laughter. She digs her nails into her own face. She tears at her skin until blood runs down her cheeks. George R.R. Martin spares us nothing. He shows us the soul of a mother shattering in real time. And then they kill her. They cut her throat and cast her body into the green fork of the Trident. Naked, mutilated, forgotten, or so it seemed. 3 days later, something impossible happens. Her body is found, bloated and discolored, drifting downstream. The Brotherhood without banners pulls her from the riverbank. They don't know what to do at first until Thoros of Myre, the Red Priest who follows the Lord of Light, refuses to bring her back. He says it's too late, that she's been dead too long, that what would return wouldn't be her. But Beric Dondarrion, himself brought back from death 6 times, disagrees. And with no hesitation, Beric gives up the fire of life that still burns within him. He lays his lips on Catelyn's broken mouth and passes the flame. He dies, and Catelyn Stark opens her eyes. But she is not the same. She is not Catelyn. She is something else entirely. She is Lady Stoneheart, a revenant, a ghost made flesh, her throat a ruined gash, barely able to rasp the names of her enemies. Her skin gray, her hair brittle, her fingers stiff with rot, her memory fractured, her soul burned away by vengeance. And yet, one thing remains intact. Her hatred, her wrath, her desire to see the Freys, the Boltons, and all who betrayed House Stark hang for their crimes. Now let's pause here, because in the HBO show this moment never happens. Lady Stoneheart doesn't exist. Catelyn's body is never recovered. The Brotherhood never brings her back. Beric Dondarrion doesn't give his life. That entire narrative branch erased. Why? According to the showrunners, it was a matter of narrative economy. They felt Stoneheart's inclusion would confuse viewers, that Arya's revenge arc would cover the same ground, that another resurrection would dilute Jon Snow's later return. But here's the problem. Lady Stoneheart's story isn't just about revenge. It's about the perversion of justice, about what happens when a noble soul is consumed by pain and returns without the parts that made her human. She is not a second Arya. She is a dark mirror of what Arya might become. And her absence in the show left a hole that no face-swapping kill spree could truly fill. So what does Lady Stoneheart do? She doesn't weep. She doesn't rally allies. She doesn't write letters or seek justice in courts. She starts hanging people, Freys, Lannisters, even former allies. anyone who once stood against Robb, anyone who failed to help, anyone who hesitates. She leads the Brotherhood without banners, not as a revolutionary force, but as executioners. Gone are Thoros' sermons and Beric's oaths. Now the Brotherhood serves the dead, and their justice knows no mercy. Let's examine the transformation. In life, Catelyn Stark was cautious, political, often driven by fear, but always with her children in mind. She distrusted Jon Snow. She urged Robb not to marry Talisa. She even freed Jaime Lannister in secret, hoping to trade him for her daughters. In death, all of that nuance is gone. What remains is singular purpose. She does not care about Sansa. She does not search for Arya. She does not seek peace or healing. Lady Stoneheart is pure vengeance in rotting flesh. She becomes the justice the Riverlands never received. But at what cost? Now imagine this, a woman who once represented northern dignity, now leading a mob of murderers in the night, corpses swinging from trees, villages abandoned in fear. Brienne of Tarth, a paragon of loyalty and honor, dragged before her, accused of serving the Lannisters. And Lady Stoneheart doesn't listen to Brienne's pleas. She offers Brienne a choice: kill Jaime Lannister or die. When Brienne refuses, the last word she says is sword, then darkness. None of this makes it into the show. Brienne is never tried by the undead woman who once gave her a mission. Jaime never hears the voice of his former captor turned corpse, and Catelyn Stark's body never moves again after Season 3, Episode 9. The showrunners didn't want another magical resurrection story, but George R. R. Martin, he created one for a reason. In interviews, Martin has expressed disappointment at the omission. He said Stoneheart is important, that she represents the cost of war and the distortion of justice, that she is one of the reasons he's still writing The Winds of Winter. Her story, unfinished though it may be, holds meaning. It reminds us that death in Westeros is not always an end. Sometimes, it's the beginning of something far more terrifying. So let me ask you this. What if the dead do not rest? What if the wounds left by betrayal cannot be stitched closed by time? What if justice does not come with banners and trials, but with rope and silence and cold, dead eyes? What if Catelyn Stark never truly died? What if she came back wrong? That's the question we'll be answering throughout this series. This is just the beginning. Next episode, we trace the path of Lady Stoneheart, her judgments, her executions, and the chilling scene where she nearly ends Brienne of Tarth. We'll examine how far a mother's rage can stretch beyond death and what it says about the soul of Westeros. Until then, remember, in the books, the dead still speak, and sometimes they scream.